So The Long Walk is based on a novel by Stephen King in which a group of teenage boys are expected to walk until there's only one of them left. Now, this is set in a dystopian environment, but what I love so much about the way that this film is set up by director Francis Lawrence, who's kind of used to working on dystopian stuff. Like, he's worked on a bunch of the Hunger Games films. But I love the way that the story just kind of like reveals itself. Like, it immediately gets right into the concept of the walk. You assemble all these boys together. They get to know each other a little bit before, they're informed by the cruel major, perfectly played by Mark Hamill, who's got like that gruff voice, and tells them that, look, you gotta compete in this walk. Like, it's voluntary, but you gotta compete in it if you want to prove that that America's not lazy, that you're going to be able to put yourself on the line. It's like, we didn't force you to, but this is kind of the only way you're going to be able to get money and basically get whatever you want. So we get to know a bunch of the young players here. We get to know Raymond Garrity, played by Cooper Hoffman, who we get to know him like the most because like we get to see his mom dropping him off. But we also get Peter McGreeves, who we feel like he's kind of like weathered this world a lot more based on like the scars that he's got on his face. So immediately we know that he's a little bit wiser about like the current this current setting, which they don't. I love the fact that they don't just dump the exposition. Like, it's progressively shown to you as the walk starts. So you just kind of like it. The film pretty much just like hits the ground running, and then just like kind of like gently kind of like expands on both the concept of the walk and the world that's been created around it. That's basically become a dystopian America. So there's lots of great little clues to how these characters are set up. And there's a few characters who seem pretty simple, but there's like a few twists to them. Like we're introduced like Stebbins, who's played by Garrett Waring, who you assume he's kind of like the strongest person there, but you're kind of like waiting for something to take him down. You have Tut Nyot, who is Arthur Baker, who seems like he's a little bit more used to this world as well, given his kind of like cocky nature. And then you have Charlie Plummer playing Gary, who's very much like a bully, but I love the fact that there's a great setup with him. Like, you assume like, okay, this is kind of going to be like the bully who's going to, intentionally make other people fail, and you're kind of like rooting for him to lose. But I love how the moment when he starts doing that, it psychologically damages him. So there's a lot of great like aspects to this film of just revealing a little bit more about these characters as they go, and they don't become like so simplistic. Like there's a few you think right off the bat, like Hank, played by Ben Wang, who's kind of like the little scrappy Asian character. He's got a good mouth on him, and he's kind of like, in this for the long haul, but there's a little bit more to him that gets revealed. Like, you kind of get to like see like his mind deteriorate. And with a lot of the boys, you do see that as the walk goes over like miles and miles and miles, you start to see that kind of like wear and tear, not just on their bodies, but on their minds as well. Now, I know that, like, initially the draw for a film like this is just to see, like with any, like, dystopian game, is like, who's going to win? And I get the feeling that a lot of people are just going to, like, look at the trailer and they're just going to be like, oh, okay, I know who's going to live and I know who's going to die. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, you probably won't. But also, that's not the point of the film. The point isn't to see who's going to win. The point is to see, how they're going to die. Because, like, we're told right from the start, only one person is going to be left when they're done here, and a lot of boys are going to end up dying here. So it's not a question of, like, who is going to die, it's a question of how they're going to die. And it is brutal. Like, sure, like, if these boys slow down, they're shot. Like, it's not explicitly stated, it's kind of implied, and the moment that it happens, like, it's a shock. It's a shock to, like, the audience who might not be aware of the concept. Like, for the audience member who goes into this movie cold, they're going to be horrified. Like, because like they initially, like, they use like specific language for the walk where they say like, if you slow down, then, you're out of the race. But what they don't tell you is that when you're out of the race, you're dead. You get shot to death. But the moment that it happens, like the first gunshot is brutal. Like there's the anticipation leading up to it where the soldier is just taking aim, and you see the boy crying, like he knows that his time is up, he's done for, and then the gunshot hits, his jaw dislocates, and it's just like the sound and the sight and everything, it's like a lightning bolt to your soul. And I love the exchange right after that, which is one of the boys says, well, yeah, sure, it's the first death, but, as you go along on the walk, you'll get used to it. And one of the boys remarks, I hope I never get used to it. And that's my same feeling as well. I didn't want to get used to, that death where, it got to the point where it kind of numbed you, where you didn't care about it. And it doesn't. In the very early parts of the race, you expect a few to get picked off that you don't know that much about. But even still, just like the way the anticipation, the build-up, and just the bloody and gruesome details, it hits you hard. And the more that it goes along, the more you get to know a lot of these characters and the way that they get obliterated. Because it's not just as simple as getting shot. Some of them will almost kind of like beg to be shot. Some of them will try to fight back. Some of them will get one bullet. Some will get multiple bullets. Some will just like bleed out as a way to just, make it sting a lot more for the people who have to keep walking. And some, well, one in particular just gets run over, and it is gruesome, it's bloody, it's horrifying, and you never get used to it. Every single moment there's that build up, that anticipation that someone is going to die, and you never get used to it. It's so anxiety inducing, especially like, oh my God, the scene where they have to go uphill because they have to maintain a certain speed. And when they're going uphill, when, you're starting to get tired, that's when, it really becomes intense. Like it's generally anxiety inducing. And I've seen a lot of horror films that really did put me on edge, but this was like throughout. I was just, gripping my seat hard. But like, I love very much the ethos of this film that's kind of like delivered by the fairly like wise Peter McGreaves, who just states that, look, I'm not thinking so much about the bodies behind me or the other dead players who are going to be further up the road here. All that kind of matters right now is just this moment and getting to the next moment, which is kind of like a way to go through life. It's just, you need to appreciate the time you have and just make the most of it. And it's not a way of like giving up. It's just kind of trying to find a way to keep living. But what I love so much about the way that it keeps revealing a little bit more about these characters is that they start to realize just how screwed up a system they are in this very moment, where they realize, yeah, this walk, it's voluntary, but not really, because we're all struggling for money and we all like want one wish that's going to like satisfy our purpose in life. So it's not really voluntary, like you're forced into it. It's basically these kids discovering like the hideous and decaying nature of capitalism and how fascism can easily slip in there. Because the more that gets revealed about this world, you start realizing the more grotesque elements about how like they've essentially like banned culture, which becomes a part of a reason that Raymond has kind of like entered this competition for revenge. So not everybody, and I think they make it pretty clear the more that they go along in this walk, is that it's not just about money. It's about like a purpose and trying to find something more to life than what just like the government has set up for these unlucky kids. And in addition to that, I love the way that just all the little details about the walk are revealed. Like at one point, you see Raymond early on drinking from his canteen. And I thought, okay, do they all have like a set amount of water? Do they kind of have to like ration it and risk being dehydrated? And then that question was kind of answered like, oh, he holds up his canteen and then the soldier will instantly replace it for him. But then it made me wonder like, well, wait a minute, what happens if they have to go to the bathroom? And then that question is immediately answered in the grossest way possible. So yeah, this film gets pretty brutal and blunt at times, but also just the dialogue between the boys is so it's so intoxicating. Like there's a natural charm and presence to the kids that I think like allows that more like emotional state in them when like they're dying or they're fearful or they've just become like nihilistic, where they realize they've lost all hope. You really start feeling for them, and just their reactions are so believable that I think it makes like the deaths hit even harder the more that the walk just keeps like going on. Not to mention Mark Hamill is like such a great like smug jerk as like the major, that, you know, like you feel like the rage that a lot of these boys start having for this guy. And especially, like, I love how just like this is a villain who kind of like basks in all the control he has. Like, as he looks at this entire walk not as like a fair competition, but as a way to like build up manliness and spirit. Because like at one point, like the boys are just like screaming back at him, like telling him just like, shut up. We don't want to hear all your declarations about how, you know, this is for the good of the nation, or how this is going to make you more of a man. And all he can do is just laugh at that. He's just like, yes, this is what I want. I want you to be angry and frustrated because I want you to be dumb. I just want you to just focus on getting to the finish line and don't question any other aspects in this world. Just center everything on me right now and concentrate on winning, because don't you want to win? Don't you want all the money? And the ending, like, I'm not going to reveal it here for anyone who is worried about the spoilers, but by the time it gets up to the ending, I love the way how it ends on this very satisfying note, because like throughout the walk, there's this question about whether or not to, you know, use that one wish you have to either do good in the world, try to find like some ways to improve it, or just to seek out like bloody revenge, and trying to like realize what matters the more you go in life. And ultimately what it comes down to is just like the personal attachments that drive us forward, and to institute like the mark that we want left on the world. And I think by the end it does that, but like in a very like a very like darkly poignant way that doesn't end the film on much of like a high note where you truly believe like this could be the final walk. You don't know if it is, but you do know that it does leave a lasting impression, and if nothing else, just like a, you know, some level of like accomplishment that goes beyond just, you know, getting through the walk and trying to like find some way to fight back with it. I'll be honest, I've never read the novel, but this feels like I kind of do want to read the book now if it's as intense as this film was, because you never get used to it. You never get used to like the brutality. You never stop feeling for these characters. Not to mention a lot of like the unexpected twists and how like some of these characters die. Like you think you know how some of these characters might go, and then it shocks you, because like we're not all like the same people the more that we go through life, you know. Goals change, personalities change, our outlook on life becomes so much different that it shocks us to see, you know, what we end up becoming. And I think this film is basically kind of like a coming of age film, but in like kind of like the worst way, where you watch these boys grow up way too fast and realize just how horrible a world that they have grown up in. And just the performances from everyone here, including like Judy Greer as Raymond's mother. She's not on screen too much, but the few times she is, you see that kind of desperation in her face of just realizing, I've brought my kid up into this hideous world. What have I done? What am I going to do? And just feeling that level of hopelessness. She's more or less the audience, just like standing back watching in like despair, being very tearful about who doesn't make it across the finish line here. So yeah, The Long Walk, it's so got under my skin and just rattled me. And I think that's what you want out of a horror film. You don't want to get used to the kills. You don't want to just look at it straight as a game. You want to see it as, you know, making a statement about this dystopian world that allowed for young men to be gunned down in the name of preserving the workforce, or some other stupid logic that comes with fascists wanting to take away everything in life. So yeah, this was a very poignant film. I think is perfectly suited for this year. So yeah, I absolutely love this film. It'll rattle you, especially even if you are used to a lot of dystopian horror films. This one rattled me. So yeah, The Long Walk is a brilliant, anxiety-inducing horror film.